capital. I am Abdul Malik Adio.
And I'm Elizabeth Stover. Many thanks for joining us. First, the headlines. Federal Executive Council approves more than 9.4 billion naira for the purchase of assorted grains to reinforce the nation's grains reserve.
The PDP and its presidential candidate are doing everything possible to sabotage the Buhari administration.
Federal government cautions PDP against increasingly unpatriotic and desperate opposition politics.
House of Representatives amends the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission Act to make stolen assets recovery easier.
Plus, 2 released victims of alleged smuggling of illicit drugs in Saudi Arabia receives 3 million naira, each from Kano State government.
Now the news. The Federal Executive Council has approved over 9.4 billion naira for the purchase of assorted grains towards reinforcing the nation's grains reserve.
Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Audu Ogbe, announced this at a media briefing after the meeting of the Executive Council presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari.
State House correspondent Adam Musambo reports that approvals were also granted for the enhancement of infrastructure, water and power sectors.
Taking a cue from international best practice of acquiring at least 2 to 3% of all grains grown at the end of harvest, the Federal Executive Council approved the purchase of 61,000 tons of maize, millet and sorghum for storage in the grain silos.
If there's an emergency anywhere in the country, or there's a shortage or a flood and there is no food, we can draw from what we have in the silos and distribute to needy areas of the country.
The measure, the minister said, is also in furtherance of the government's policy of using what is produced locally, through which in the last 3.5 years, $21 billion was saved on imports. For the Ministry of Water Resources, 4 memos were approved, including the need to exploit the potentials of Gurara 2 hydropower project to generate 360 megawatts of power.
Council approved for us to take this project to FOCAC for possible financing by the China Exim Bank at the cost of about $1 billion. The second memo was for the need to complete Inkari Dam in Akwa Ibom State, and this was approved about 5.7 billion naira.
The ministry also secured the council's approval to appoint consultants to supervise works towards the completion of the Gari irrigation project for Kano and Jigawa states abandoned for 17 years, as well as the Ile-Ife Dam in Osun State started in 2004.
The council approved the RETC in the sum of about 10.4 billion naira or thereabout. So we hope with the approval, the contractor will resume on site and work will be continued with the hope that it will be finished in 24 months.
On his part, the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, announced the approval of the council for the construction of an interchange as well as pedestrian bridge at Abuja in the FCT at 7.1 billion naira to address the perennial problem of accidents in the area.
The second memorandum was for the procurement of 200,217 meters by Yola Electricity Distribution Company under the Meter Asset Provider Scheme for consumers under their franchise, which covers Adamawa, Borno, Taraba and Yobe states. The cost of those meters is 11.208 billion naira.
The project, the minister said, is to be funded through what he called the judgment sum in respect of an old meter supply dispute since 2003, now domiciled in the bank. And as consumers pay for the meters as supplied, the money goes back into their account. Yola Distribution Company is now under the management of the federal government, having been surrendered by original holders. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
President Muhammadu Buhari has accepted the invitation of King Salman bin Abdulaziz, the ruler of Saudi Arabia and custodian of the two holy mosques, to perform the Umrah Lesser Pilgrimage in the kingdom. To this effect, the president, accompanied by close personal aides, will embark on the journey later today. A statement by Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, says the president is expected back in the country on Tuesday, 21st May. Umrah is an optional but recommended pilgrimage to Mecca that can be made at any time of the year. The federal government has strongly decried what it calls the increasingly unpatriotic and desperate opposition politics being played by the PDP and its presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar.
The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, while briefing journalists on the disturbing trends, warns that such dead-end opposition could be toxic for the nation's democracy if left unchecked. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
Alhaji Lai Mohammed says never in the history of politics in Nigeria has an opposition party exhibited the kind of desperate tactics being deployed by the PDP and its flag bearer since losing the 2019 presidential election to President Muhammadu Buhari and the governing APC.
Either by themselves or via their proxies, the PDP and its presidential candidate are doing everything possible to sabotage the Buhari administration, generally overheat the polity, and make Nigeria seemingly ungovernable, especially through their public utterances and their poorly thought out press releases.
The minister said for those who may be quick to accuse the government of crying wolf, the pre-election statement credited to the former vice president suggesting that unless Nigerians vote out the governing APC, killings by herdsmen will continue and ultimately spark a series of ethno-religious crises that will be irreversible, is looking more like a Freudian slip than anything else.
Also, in recent times, the PDP has taken its desperation to a new low by attacking the judiciary, an action many see as indicating a reversal of the party's hitherto self-assured stance that it has a solid case against the election of the president. And either by coincidence or orchestration, a faceless group emerges from nowhere calling for an overthrow of a democratically elected government, a totally egregious act of treason.
He said for acclaimed Democrats, there are acceptable channels of seeking redress after an election defeat rather than allowing desperation to becloud their sense of propriety to the extent of associating with anti-democratic forces.
Even President Muhammadu Buhari himself went to court 3 times to challenge election results. What is not acceptable is to either resort to self-help after an election defeat or to embark on a journey of subterfuge and sabotage while also mounting a legal challenge or pretending to do so. Worse still, painting the judiciary bad for whatever reason is anti-democratic and unconscionable.
Alhaji Lai Mohammed urges the main opposition party to, amongst others, desist from overheating the polity and stop beating the drums of war, but concentrate on the legal challenge by its candidate against the election of President Muhammadu Buhari, if indeed they have any faith in the country's judiciary. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
And the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal is now to hear a formal application on whether President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Zainab Bukachua, should recuse herself of the chairmanship of the tribunal.
The motion is to be taken on Wednesday, 22nd of May. This is part of the outcome of Wednesday's sitting at the Court of Appeal. Judiciary correspondent Femi Okeo has the details.
The issue of whether the President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Zainab Bukachua, should recuse herself from the headship of the panel of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal is now to be treated formally. It was once an issue which was treated in the public domain and a letter to that effect written by the PDP. Now the court is to hear a formal application to that effect. The day's sitting had started with lead counsel to the People's Democratic Party, Dr. Levi Uzoku SAN, requesting for an audience in chambers between chairman of the panel, Justice Zainab Bukachua, and the 4 other justices, along with 2 counsel each representing President Muhammadu Buhari, the All Progressives Congress, and INEC. It was on return from the closed-door meeting that chairman of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal announced that the meeting was related to a letter which the PDP chairman, Uche Secondus, had written for her to stand down as the chairman of the tribunal. She said counsel to the petitioners was at liberty to move the motion in open court so it could form part of the records of proceedings. All the parties to the petition were not opposed to the application being moved in court. The motion will now be heard on the 22nd. In Abuja, Femi Okeowo, NTA News.
The Senate says unemployment and poverty are Siamese twins. Both social problems exist side by side, and the fight against one naturally checks the other.
So to further reduce poverty in Nigeria, the Senate has advised the federal government to declare emergency on unemployment in Nigeria. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Okwo reports.
Less than 29 days to the end of the 8th National Assembly, senators appear to be more punctual than in the last few months. Prominent among the motions that was considered by the Senate is the call for the federal government to create more pro-poor social safety nets with 20% of looted funds channeled to it, and for the allocation of 26% of annual budget to education. Senator Chukwuka Otazi moved the motion.
And to take other urgent measures to stimulate production and other economic activities to engage young citizens of this country.
I believe out of every 10 phone calls you receive here as a parliamentarian, 8 is about people's personal problems.
Is that the poor man is very, very helpless. Even if you create opportunities for employment, you discover that the LR will first choose their own children first. What about those who don't have anybody?
I think the executive arm of government, through the social investment program, which we budget 500 billion every year, is also trying. I am sure that we have achieved something.
Senators believe a national policy on population control and the establishment of factories in each local government in Nigeria will provide more employment opportunities.
Of us who are here, communities contributed money for us to go to school. So I think that we cannot abandon that cultural attitude. But unless this government and all governments have a population control policy, one, we cannot solve the problem.
And in our own case, I think over the years, we have come up with different plans, which actually we don't even implement.
We cannot address these issues by mere coming to mention them on the floor of the House. It's not possible. What we need to do is to articulate a position, invite everybody to propose a solution to this problem.
The legislators considered a motion to encourage Nigerians to install carbon monoxide detectors in motor vehicles and houses to prevent health hazards associated with the substance. as moved by Senator Bolahon Dada.
A family of 6 in Igbo Etel community, Etel local government area of River State, lost their life to generators fumes.
The Nigerian Police Academy Establishment Bill has been passed by the Senate. The academy is already in existence without legal backing. Well, the Senate has also reconsidered and passed the Industrial Development Act Amendment Bill, which the President denied assent. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
Now, the Senate Committee on Banking has screened the Governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, for a second term of 5 years in office. After listening to various steps the Central Bank of Nigeria has taken as interventions to stabilize Nigeria's macro economy, members of the committee congratulated the governor but tasked him and his team to keep up the tempo for better economic outcomes for Nigeria in the future.
We have representation of the whole regions. And it's always very, very difficult to make that. My even senior colleague can attest to that what is like. So I see that as a very, very empowering bill. I wish you would pray for me for God to continue to guide me.
I advise you to learn to hurt your friends than to do things that are wrong. That will preserve you, preserve your dignity, your children, your grandchildren, and generations to come.
Governor of the Central Bank, Godwin Emefiele, responding to the committee, admitted that there is still more to be done to move Nigeria forward in terms of monetary policy. He, however, appealed to Nigerians to respect policies and laws of the country. He also cleared the air on public assumption about Nigeria having multiple exchange rates, stating that there are only multiple windows with same exchange rates.
In exchange rates. Substantially today, our rates have converged around 360 naira to the dollar, because the investors and exporters window, which is the dominant market for procurement of foreign exchange today, hovers around that rate. But what you will find, and understandably so, is multiple windows.
Emefiele, who takes pride in the achievement of the Apex Bank through interventions in agriculture and manufacturing sector, gave credit to President Muhammadu Buhari, who leads and initiates the processes.
Senate leader Ahmed Lawal says ensuring supportive legislation to achieving target of the APC-led administration remains the focus of his aspiration to the Senate President's seat and chairmanship of the National Assembly.
This was his submission at the interactive session with the media in Abuja. National Assembly correspondent Abdullah Aminu reports.
It was a gathering of senior media practitioners with some senators-elect for the Ninth Assembly who are supportive on the senator's ambition of becoming Senate President. The Senate leader said if elected as Senate President, he will ensure legislation that will be supportive of the federal government's effort to improve the country's security architecture.
The leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari has very noble and laudable programs and projects. And for us, in the National Assembly, in the Ninth Senate, we are going to support those kind of laudable and noble programs and projects for the benefit of Nigerians.
Ahmed Lawan also emphasized on the need for harmonious working relationship amongst the lawmakers, irrespective of party and other differences.
We intend to make a Senate that believes and remains focused on making Nigeria a better and better country.
The group assured commitment to coming up with laws that will have positive impact on all segments of Nigeria.
Now join our outside broadcast crew for a live telecast. Please stay tuned.
Amen and amen. Please be seated as we call for a resounding applause for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Your Excellency, Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara, Speaker, House of Representatives, Federal Republic of Nigeria, My Lord, Honorable Justice Dr. Ibrahim Tanko Mohammed, Acting Chief Justice of the Federation and Chairman, National Judicial Council, ably represented here by Honorable Justice Rosalind P.I. Bozimo, the Administrator of the National Judicial Institute, Officer of the Federal Republic. Your Excellency, Distinguished Senator Professor Ike Ekweremadu, CFR, Deputy President of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, distinguished senators and honorable members of the National Assembly here present, the Chairman, Presidential Implementation Committee on the Financial Autonomy of a State Legislature and State Judiciary, Mr. Abubakar Malami, SAN, Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, ably represented here by Mr. Tayo Akpata, Solicitor General of the Federation. Your Excellency, Malam Mohammed Abubakar, the Executive Governor of Bauchi State.
It is my pleasure to have you join us on the opening ceremony of a two-day retreat on strategy.
Senate Liaison, Senator Dr. Ita Inang, Esquire, the Chairman, Speakers Forum of Nigeria, and Speaker, Lagos State House of Assembly, Right Honorable Obasa Mudashiru, ably represented here on the head table by the Deputy Speaker, rather by the Deputy Chairman of the Speakers Forum of Nigeria, Right Honorable Abel D. Peter, Speaker, Taraba State House of Assembly, and other speakers of States Houses of Assembly here present, my lords, chief judges of states present, heads of judicial institutes, our resource persons, discussants and rapporteurs here, captain of industries, members of his fourth estate of the realm, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Pursuant to Section 161 of the fourth alteration of the 1999 Constitution, as amended, the autonomy of state legislature and judiciary will greatly enhance governance at the state levels. Undoubtedly, it will be a huge challenge, and it is also a form of restructuring which some political and sectional leaders in the country have canvassed for since 2015. And taking into cognizance the challenge the implementation of the Act will face, President Muhammadu Buhari has set up a committee chaired by the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Malam Abubakar Malami, SAN. The committee, amongst its 5 terms of reference, is saddled with the responsibility of assessing and reviewing the level of compliance by the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in all this, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to salute and commend President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, for taking the bull by the horn and his resilience in assenting to this bill and subsequently setting up the implementation committee, which is the essence of this gathering here this morning, and culminating in a 2-day retreat. Can we please, in absentia, give the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria a resounding applause. And to get the program underway in earnest, and to welcome all of you at this juncture, may I invite the Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Assembly Matters, distinguished Senator Dr. Solomon Itainang, to please come up very quickly before we invite the Attorney General of the Federation. Please, a warm round of applause for him, please.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Dogara, Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Senate, Senator Professor Ike Ekweremadu, Your Excellency, the Governor of Bauchi State and representative of the Chairman of the Governors Forum, M.A. Abubakar, my Lord, with sincere apologies, I recognize His Lordship, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Tanko Mohammed, Justice of the Supreme Court, and Acting Justice of Nigeria, represented by the Director General of the National Judicial Institute. Let me recognize the Chairman Conference of Speakers, Chairman Body of Chief Judges, the Grand Cadis, and especially recognize the President of the Nigerian Bar Association, Paul Usoro SAN, the Chairman Conference of Speakers, Obasa, is here, and the Deputy Chairman, Ade, they are here. Please let me respect all protocol. I stand in for the Chairman of the Implementation Committee, the learned Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami SAN, and I present his address of welcome on his behalf and on behalf of the Implementation Committee. I'm Ita Enang. May I, on behalf of the President, this is a welcome address and agenda setting presented by the Chairman of the committee at the opening of this conference. May I, on behalf of the Presidential Implementation Committee on Autonomy of State Judiciary and State Legislature in the 36 states of the Federation, welcome Your Excellencies, my Lords, the Honorable Speakers, and indeed all stakeholders to this conference. Upon assent to the fourth alteration to the 1999 Constitution, granting autonomy to the legislative and judicial arms of government, it was noticed that in most states of the Federation, this provision was honored more in breach by some states, while some compliant states were either irregular or executed without sustainable legislative framework. His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, considered it appropriate to constitute a broad-based representative committee made up of all affected interests to sit together and fashion out a standard and near uniform modules for implementing this provision to strengthen democracy and governance at the state level. This committee was therefore constituted and inaugurated for this purpose. Since inauguration, the committee has had several meetings and arrived at certain options for implementing the autonomy. The legislature are captured as first-line charge in the budget laid before the legislature, that the budget proposal of each of the legislature and the judiciary are defended before the relevant committees of the legislature. That the sum, capital and recurrent, approved in the budget is released by the Accountant General of the state directly to the head of the legislature and the judiciary heads heads of court in the judicial service. That the sum is released monthly in account to the account of the respective arms of government. That the budgeted sum, capital and recurrent, howsoever described, be released to the judiciary to be spent by the judiciary on the project, programs and capital development of the judiciary, including recurrent and training of personnel, and so also for the legislature. That the current practice in some states, where the appropriated recurrent expenditure due to the judiciary in the budget are released to the judiciary and the capital component are warehoused either in the Ministry of Finance or the Ministry of Works or the Office of the Secretary to the State Government, and in the course thereof, they humiliate chief judges, humiliate the judiciary, and humiliate the legislature. It's not compliance with the Constitution, but breach of the Constitution. And so, for the legislature. We did in the committee constitute 2 subcommittees to prepare model budget of the judiciary and model budget of the legislature, and design the strata of line consultations and inter-arms as well as inter-agency pre-budget consultation and front-loading of budget. The recommendations are going to be considered at the technical session of this retreat, and what we arrive at will be adopted and taken as nationwide operational model. Same may then be considered and passed as legislation in the respective states. This will lay the framework which may be applied nationwide and used as state peer review instruments. Let me, on behalf of the committee, appreciate all the committee members, our guest of honor, the keynote speaker, Your Excellencies, the Honorable Speaker of the House, the Deputy President of the Senate, and indeed the governors and their representatives, the chief judges and heads of courts, stakeholders, as well as all men of goodwill, and welcome you to this retreat and pray that God do grant us success. Thank you very much and welcome.
The welcome remarks there by the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Justice of the Federation, Mr. Abubakar Malami, SAN, and speaking for him this morning, Senator Dr. Ita Inang. I'd like us to please applaud him one more time. And permit me to also mention that the Chairman Body of Chief Judges of Nigeria is also here with us in flesh and blood. I'd like us to recognize him. And of course, Chairman Body of Grand Caddies and President's Customary Courts of Appeal. I'd like us to please applaud all of them, as we also recognize that the Right Honorable Mubashiru Obasa is now present and he's on the head table. Speaker, Lagos State House of Assembly, Chairman, Conference of Speakers of Nigeria. In moving on, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we'll be taking a goodwill message at this juncture from Dr. Clement Nwankwo, Director, Policy and Legal Advocacy, Center Executive Director. Let's please welcome him with a very resounding round of applause as he comes for his goodwill message.
The Right Honorable Speaker, Your Excellency, the Deputy Senate President, my Lords, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to especially commend President Buhari for setting up this committee and commend the committee for getting to work immediately. The implementation of the several provisions of the Constitution that the National Assembly amended and the President assented to is really very key and important for the development of our democracy. The judiciary and the legislature are key components and arms of government. The situation where the legislature, which actually makes the distinction between democracy and dictatorship, are crippled and made unable to function, worsens the plurality that democracy represents. And I think it's very commendable that the National Assembly took the initiative. I'm delighted that the chairman of the Committee on Constitutional Review in the Senate, Senator Kweramadu, who has been very prominent in taking this lead, in getting this passed, as well as the Speaker of the House of Representatives from the House side, who did so much to ensure that several provisions of the Constitution were amended. Unfortunately, only a few clauses of what National Assembly passed were assented to by the President. But this is very critical in terms of strengthening our democracy, that the legislature is able to function as an independent arm of government, able to moderate the excesses of the executive, particularly at the state level, where the development of the government and the transparency of government is very, very limited. So it is important, and we commend the President and the committee for taking the implementation of the autonomy of state legislatures quite seriously and ensuring that the legislatures of the states can really function in a way that supports our democracy and enhance the plurality of democracy at the state level. And the judiciary is also very key, and we've all been worried about the effectiveness of the judiciary and the ability of the judiciary to be independent. A democracy without an independent judiciary that is able to arbitrate the conflicts in government and injustices that people suffer is a danger is a major concern for a lot of us working in the human rights sphere. So an effective judiciary, able and effectively having the capacity to administer justice without fear or favor is really important for our democracy. And I would think it's important that at the state level, at the National Assembly level, at the national level as well, that the judiciary is able to carry out its role as defined in the Constitution, unfettered and unhindered in its ability to do so. So we commend the committee, we commend the President for setting up this committee. We urge the governors who are in the states to work with this committee to ensure that the fruits and benefits of these amendments that were made by the National Assembly come to happen. On behalf of Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, we would continue to give every support that the National Assembly needs, but also this committee to ensure that the report that it produces and the recommendations that it makes are actually implemented at the state level, but also important that the issues that surround the autonomy of state legislatures and state judiciaries also prevail at the national level, where we need an independent and strong legislature as well as judiciary at the national level to be able to work in partnership with every arm of government to ensure that the benefits of the democracy that we practice are near to our people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the next goodwill message will be coming from His Excellency Governor Abdulaziz Yari, Chairman, Nigerian Governors Forum. But standing in for the Governors Forum here this morning is Malam Mohammed Abubakar, the Governor of Bauchi State. Can we please welcome His Excellency to the podium with a resounding applause? Your Excellency, sir.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, the Speaker, House of Representatives, Honorable Yakubu Dogara, Your Excellency, the Deputy Senate President, my Lord, the Chief Justice, Acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, ably represented by the Director General, National Judicial Institute. Distinguished senators here present, members of the House of Representatives, Your Excellency, the former Governor of Niger State, Your Excellencies, Deputy Governors here present, Honorable Speakers, the President Nigerian Bar Association, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me bring you the immense goodwill of the Governors Forum of Nigeria, while I read a short address by the chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum. And this is his address. I'm delighted to be here this morning on the occasion of the conference on the autonomy of the state legislature and judiciary. Nigeria's democracy is 20 years old, and this is a significant milestone considering our country's socio-political and economic journey. It has not been a smooth sail, but the current administration is focused on ensuring that, rough as our journey may be, it will surely take us to the promised land. Some of the conditions for a sustainable democracy include the autonomy of the legislature and the judiciary. It is in recognition of this self-evident truth that the President inaugurated the Presidential Implementation Committee on Autonomy of State Legislature and Judiciary on the 22nd of March, 2019. I totally align with the notion that legislative and judicial autonomy are necessary preconditions for an enduring democracy. These enhance efficiency, transparency, and accountability in government. May I also assure you that the state governors are collectively committed to the enthronement of a strong and virile democracy in Nigeria and will work with the federal government to achieve the national implementation strategy and ultimately ensure full autonomy of the legislature and judiciary at subnational levels. The Nigeria Governors Forum fully supports Mr. President's reform agenda and share his passion for transparency and zero corruption. We commend the efforts of the Presidential Implementation Committee in putting together this very insightful conference to see that Nigeria attains the highest level of openness and transparency in governance. Thank you, and may God bless you all.
Thank you very much, sir. The Executive Governor of Bauchi State speaking for the Nigerian Governors Forum. I think he deserves yet another round of applause. Thank you so very much. Permit me at this juncture to announce the arrival of the Executive Governor of Benue State, Your Excellency Dr. Samuel Otom. I'd like us to please welcome him with a resounding applause. Thank you for coming, sir. And in moving on, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I at this juncture invite His Excellency, Distinguished Senator Professor Ike Ekweremadu, the Deputy President of the Senate, to please come up to the podium with his own goodwill message. Please, a warm welcome for him.
Your Excellency, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, my friend and my brother, Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara, I'm happy to note the uniform of the Governor of Bauchi and his brother, the Speaker. Your Excellency, our governors and past governors here present, my lords, very distinguished colleagues, members of the National Assembly, my friends, the honorable speakers of various states as the Assembly, I'm happy to see all of you here and to also welcome you to this event. I'm happy to see you because you recall that while we were working on this, some of you were threatened that if you pass this bill, you lose your job. And I'm happy that you are still having your job in spite of passing the bill. So congratulations. Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me also in particular recognize our friend and our brother, Mr. Clem Wankwo, who actually have been working with us since 2007 on this project in terms of resources, both human resources and financial resources. And I believe that we can see in his hands in the conference we are having today. I know that he would have contributed, at least would have helped access funds to facilitate this program. I want to thank you for your contribution. It gives me great pleasure, therefore, to be part of this important conference. I also count it an honor to have the opportunity to make a few remarks on this occasion. Your Excellencies, my lords, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I have been privileged to be at the hub of constitutional alteration exercise since 2007 as the chairman of the Senate Committee on Constitutional Review. I understand the efforts, the sacrifices, state resources, and international support that go into each cycle of constitutional amendment. I have known the joy and relief that accompany the fruition of these efforts and contributions by well-meaning Nigerians with every presidential assent. I have also experienced the dampened spirit and understand the monumental opportunities lost when some alteration bills are not assented to. Therefore, I appreciate and commend His Excellency President Muhammad Buhari, GCFR, for assenting to the National Assembly Constitutional Alteration Bill granting financial autonomy to state legislatures and state judiciary. I also commend the Presidential Implementation Committee on Autonomy of State Legislature and Judiciary for bringing relevant stakeholders together to brainstorm and ensure effective implementation of the new constitutional provisions. Your Excellencies, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, although there is no perfect constitution anywhere in the world, ours in particular contradicts in several respects the basic principles of democracy, such as the separation of powers, checks and balances, and compromises the independence of critical institutions of democracy, such as the judiciary, the legislature, and our electoral management body, the Independent National Electoral Commission. It also negates, in many regards, the fundamental principles and pillars which our professed federalism ought to rest on. So, the whole essence of constitutional alteration effort by the National Assembly has always been to strengthen the institutions of democracy, promote good governance, and hasten national development. Therefore, the National Assembly has, starting from 2010, successfully and incrementally altered the Constitution to place the Federal Legislature, INEC, State House of Assembly, and State Judiciary on first-line charges. Although the State Assemblies rejected financial autonomy for themselves in 2010, even when they approved it for the National Assembly and INEC, it is heartwarming that the state legislatures have accepted their financial autonomy and accepted same for the judiciary. By successfully placing both arms on first-line charge to the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the state, we believe that their hands have been strengthened to better execute their constitutional mandates without fear or favor. Like the various arms of government, every strata of government also needs adequate autonomy to deliver on its constitutional responsibilities. Sadly, the local government in particular is about the weakest link in our government structure. Unfortunately, the bill to abrogate state-local government joint account was rejected by the State House of Assembly. Also, the bill to strengthen local government administration as true third tier of government by preventing the recognition of any local government council not democratically elected, preventing such unelected local government councils from receiving allocation from the federation account or the state, and providing for a uniform 3-year tenure for local government councils, among others, is still unattended to by the State House of Assembly. I therefore enjoin the state governors and our state assemblies to do the needful by attending to this bill. We must build our democracy on the solid rock of strong institutions so that long after we are gone, posterity will be kind to us for the right and selfless decisions we take today. Your Excellencies, my lords, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Section 14(2)(b) of the 1999 Constitution clearly provides that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. Sadly, the nation is increasingly besieged and rampaged by soulless and marauding terrorists, kidnappers, and suspected herdsmen, unleashing terror on innocent and peace-loving citizens because we abandoned decentralized policing, which worked for us in the colonial era up to 1966, and embraced unitary policing at our own peril. Although no two federations are exactly the same, every system comes with its own fundamental principles. One of the fundamental elements of federalism is decentralized policing. Therefore, granted that the subnational police we had before 1966 witnessed incidents of abuse by political actors, we cannot deny that they secured our people better. Therefore, our best option is not to run away from decentralized policing, but to ensure appropriate checks in terms of recruitment, appointment of police chiefs, control, logistics, funding, among others, to guide against such abuses by state governors as unfair. Just like the National Judicial Council, there shall be a National Police Service Commission to exercise a level of oversight over the activities of the state police, such as maintaining common facilities for all police services in the country, including training, criminal intelligence bases, forensic laboratories, and rendering assistance to state police in specialized areas like behavioral analysis, counter-terrorism, etc. The National Police Service Commission should also run a system of inspectorates and certification, such as supervision of recruitment, training, supervision of standards, and annual certification of every state police. There should also be a body known as the State Police Service Commission for each state and should comprise a representative of the executive to be appointed by the governor, representatives of the federal government to be appointed by the National Police Service Commission, 2 independent experts in security matters to be appointed by the governor, subject to confirmation by the State National Assembly, and the representative each of the Nigerian Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress. Others are retired police officers not below the rank of Assistant Commissioner of Police, representative of the Nigerian Bar Association to be appointed by the chairman of the state branch, representative of the Nigerian Union of Journalists to be appointed by the chairman of the state branch, and representative of the Christian Association of Nigeria, Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, and other relevant civil organizations, as the case may be. The body should be responsible for the recruitment, appointment, and discipline of members of the state police. The funding of state police should be a first-line charge on the state account, or it can be deducted as source from the federation account and paid to the Police Service Commission for onward disbursement to State Police Service Commission. There should be an act of the National Assembly stipulating the type of arms that can be acquired by a sub-national police and also unacceptable conducts which can lead to sanction of a sub-national police command. On the issue of affordability, it should be noted that state police would not be compulsory, just like the state universities. We started from the old Anambra State. Those who have the resources will establish theirs, while those who cannot afford it now will continue to rely on federal police alone until such a time they are able to establish one. The important thing is to lay down the legal frameworks that authorizes and regulates decentralized policing so that those who can afford it can start. So I urge Mr. President to learn his political way and wait to the quest for decentralized policing, especially now that we are challenged in all respects security-wise. As I conclude, let me congratulate the various state assemblies, the state judiciary, and indeed all of us of democracy, that the autonomy of state legislature and state judiciary has been finally achieved. I will also thank the federal government for its interest in the smooth implementation of the autonomy. However, let me advise that this autonomy is not a license to appropriate whatever you like to your assemblies or state judiciary. Rather, it is a recognition of the prioritization of the release of your funds in the appropriation law of your respective states. I suggest a dialogue of the state assemblies and state judiciary with their respective governors on the appropriate sum to be included for these critical institutions in the budget based on available or anticipated resources in any budgetary year. This is what we do at the National Assembly, and it has worked for us. I also enjoy the executive to ensure that whatever is appropriated must, as possible, be released and as a matter of priority. On this note, I would like to thank Mr. President and his team for inviting me to be part of this conference. Thank you for your kind attention, and we will have a fruitful conference.
Thank you very much, the Deputy President of the Senate, making his own contribution to this all-important event. Permit me at this juncture to recognize the presence of His Excellency Dr. Kayode Fayemi, Executive Governor of Ekiti State. Thank you so much for coming. A warm round of applause for him. May I also recognize a member of the Presidential Implementation Committee, representing the House of Representatives at the committee, Right Honorable Aminu Shehu Shagari, Chairman House Committee on Judiciary. A round of applause for him, please, as well as the former Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Babangida S.M. Ngroje, OFR, who was a former Deputy Speaker and now Chairman, Governing Council, Nigerian Investment Promotion Council. You're most welcome. And moving on, Your Excellency, I consider it really expedient at this juncture to then invite His Excellency, Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara, Speaker, House of Representatives, to please lend his voice to all that has been discussed here this morning. Can we please welcome him with a very resounding round of applause? Your Excellency, the Speaker, sir.
My Lord, Honorable Justice Dr. Ibrahim Tanko, Acting Chief Justice of Nigeria and Chairman National Judicial Council, more than ably represented in this gathering by my Lord Honorable Justice Roslyn B.I. Bujimo, His Excellency Distinguished Senator Ike Koromadu, CFR, Professor, Deputy President of the Senate, His Excellencies, Your Excellencies, first of all, the Governor, Executive Governor of Bauchi State, my own state, and representative of the Governors Forum holding forth for the Chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, Your Excellencies, the Governor of Benue State, the Governor of Ekiti State, and the former Governor of Niger State. Distinguished senators here present, my very distinguished, respected, honorable colleagues, members of the House of Representatives who are here, Malam Abubakar Malame, SAN, Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Chairman, Presidential Implementation Committee on Autonomy of State Legislature and State Judiciary. Distinguished Senator Itana, who is the Secretary of the Presidential Implementation Committee on Autonomy of State Legislature and State Judiciary, and is the Special Advisor to the President of National Assembly Matters, House, Senate, not House of Representatives. Your Excellencies, first of all, Chairman of the Conference of Nigerian Speakers Forum, all the speakers that are here with us, members of State Houses of Assembly, my Lord, Justices that are here with us, the President, our own President of the Nigerian Bar Association, Paul Osoro SAN, Executive Director PLAC, Dr. Clement Nwanko, invited guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be invited to present a goodwill message to this august gathering of eminent jurists, legislators, members of the executive branch, and participants on a very important topic which is central to the effectiveness of our practice of constitutional democracy in Nigeria, namely the financial autonomy of state legislature and judiciary. My brief interrogation is to actually determine the appropriate subject under discussion in this regard. We note that the financial autonomy of judiciary was first introduced by the 1999 Constitution in section 81, subsection 3 for the Federation, and section 121, subsection 3 thereof for the states, as the same was not provided for under the 1963 and 1979 Constitution. Section 81, subsection 3 of the 1999 Constitution says any amount standing to the credit of the judiciary in the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation shall be paid directly to the National Judicial Council for disbursement to heads of courts established for the Federation and the state under Section 6 of this Constitution. Section 121, subsection 3 provides any amount standing to the credit of the judiciary in the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the state shall be paid directly to the heads of the courts concerned. It is vital to note that the fourth alteration, Act of 2017, did not introduce the concept of first line charge for the judiciary as it already existed under the Constitution. It only introduced the financial autonomy for state legislature by merely substituting the existing provision with a new provision and adding House of Assembly of the states. For the avoidance of doubt, that is cited in my speech, which will be made available. I wouldn't want to bother us with that. With respect to the legislature, the 1963 and 1979 constitutions of the Federal Republic of Nigeria did not contain any provisions on the autonomy of legislature. However, by the first Alteration Act of 2010, the financial autonomy of the National Assembly was enacted. Curiously, however, state assemblies refused to approve the financial autonomy for state legislature until the fourth alteration exercise. Our understanding of the net effect of this alteration, the fourth alteration, relating to the subject matter and the discussion today, and its practical effects, is that the judiciary and the legislature, both in the states and at the federal level, are placed on first-line charge in the disbursement of appropriated funds. In other words, any money duly appropriated by the National Assembly or state houses of assembly for the judiciary or legislature is completely and directly released first to them before any other government, ministry, department, and agencies will access their own funds. The executive branch has no discretion on the question of whether the funds will be released. It does not have discretion as to the percentage to be released once funds are available in the consolidated revenue funds of the federation or states. And unfortunately, this has been observed in breach, and that informed the fourth alteration that was undertaken by the National Assembly. It must be noted that the lack of autonomy of these key institutions at the state level has been the bane of our democracy. All of you will agree with me that more funds really accrue to states and local governments from the federation account than to the federal government. So independence of the judiciary at the state level and the legislature at the state level, therefore, means that this humongous amount of money that goes to state and local governments will now be properly oversighted. And of course, we know that all we have done is to give effect to the doctrine of separation of powers. This was propounded very long ago, that all the branches of government, be the executive, legislative, judicial, are core equal branches of government. And the entire idea of a limited government is that all the branches of government are limited by law. And where any of those branches possesses the capacity to act in difference to explicit legislative authorization, then you may as well question whether it is actually democracy that is being practiced in that context. And sadly, maybe that is why in Nigeria the executive branch is regarded as the most powerful arm of government. But that is not the case in established democracies. So for us to have a very robust and sound democracy, I join others who have spoken before me in saying that we must revert to the old doctrine of separation of powers, where none of the branches possesses the capacity to lord it over other branches. And I have said this, and I will repeat it, that the legislature and the judiciary do not exist to work for the executive. They exist to work with the executive. And that distinction is very, very important. And in closing, I must say that this is a matter that we cannot play with. We must run our democracy according to the rules. If we don't strengthen our institution, our democracy will continue to struggle. It is said that eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. Without an independent legislature and judiciary at all levels of government, we'll be left with no democratic tools with which to maintain that eternal vigilance. In the end, we must all know that democracy itself does not work. It is actually the citizens of democracy that make democracy to work. Therefore, we wish you a very informed, constructive, and fruitful deliberations. God bless you and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
On to the live telecasts of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA. Various speakers in this program have underscored the importance of having a strong and varied democracy, and of course the autonomy of the state legislature and the state judiciary will guarantee passage of quality laws for the benefit of Nigerians and quick dispensation of justice in the country. It has also been agreed here that the financial autonomy of the state legislature and that of the state judiciary will strengthen democratic processes in Nigeria towards enthronement of good governance for national development. This program is part of effort by the President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration to bring about transparency in governance to ensure dividends of democracy get to the grassroots as well as curb corruption in the public sector.
Please come up with the remarks and the keynote address of the Chief Justice of the Federation and move on to inaugurate this all-important committee. Can we please applaud her one more time, please?
Your Excellency, the Right Honorable Yakubu Dudagara, Speaker, House of Representatives, Your Excellency, Senator Ike Ekweremadu, Deputy Senate President, Your Excellencies here present, my lords, heads of courts here present, the President of the Nigeria Bar Association, Mr. Paul Usoro, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, distinguished guests, members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I bring you good tidings from the Honorable, the Acting Chief Justice of Nigeria, my Lord, the Honorable Justice, Dr. Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad, who would have loved to be here this morning, but for some other very pressing official engagements, including court sittings. He has asked me to tell you that he's here with you in spirit and is in support of whatever we are doing here today. He has asked me to deliver his address, which I now proceed to do. It is indeed an honor and privilege to give a goodwill message at this unique, august gathering. I appreciate it most sincerely and equally applaud the organizers for putting up an epochal program of this magnitude to redefine and reconstruct the much-craved judicial and legislative financial independence in our dear country. It will be an understatement to say that this bold initiative has literally put our country on the fastest track of national development. Evidently, it has freely offered the needed tools for the strengthening of our various democratic institutions. You will agree with me that a nation with a virile and financially autonomous legislature and judiciary is always stable and progressive in all ramifications. I am indeed very glad that the much anticipated era of true and impregnable independence of the three arms of government has finally come, and we all stand here today as witnesses. This is a moment that we all have to cherish and savor, as our dear nation could now be cast in the mold of truly democratic countries of the world. For a long time, as it were, the much-touted judicial and legislative judicial independence had no bearing with reality. But by virtue of the passage of the relevant bill by the National Assembly and the subsequent presidential assent in 2018, we can now turn by chest and say, hurrah to Nigerian nation and are supporting democratic institutions. I must commend the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, for the uncommon courage he has mustered in responding positively to the age-long clamor for judicial and legislative independence at the state tier of government. The Honorable, the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Mr. Abubakar Malami, SAN, has equally put up commendation effort in realizing this glorious feat in our nation's history. I strongly believe that with the inauguration of the Presidential Implementation Committee on the Autonomy of State Legislature and Judiciary, in accordance with the 4th alteration to the 1999 Constitution, on Friday, the 22nd of March 2019, by Mr. President, the road to realizing the full objectives of Section 121, subsection 3 of the 1999 Constitution as amended has just been made broader and less cumbersome. With a rich experience and immense intellectual capacity of the resource persons for this conference, I am convinced that the participants will be equipped with the right tools and mindset to discharge their respective duties with renewed vigor and passion. It is now my pleasure and privilege to declare open this two-day retreat on the strategies and modalities for the implementation of financial autonomy of the state legislature and the state judiciary. Thank you all so very much. God bless you all, and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much. The Acting Chief Justice of the Federation, speaking through my Lord, Honorable Justice P.I. Bozimo. Would like us please put our hands together for her one more time. I'd like to seek your kind understanding to make this correction, that this event is a 2-day retreat on the strategies and modalities for the implementation of financial autonomy of a state legislature and state judiciary, and not inauguration. The inauguration was done already by President Muhammadu Buhari on the 22nd of March. And I'd like to thank you very much for calling my attention to that. Please, if I have been forgiven, can we then please give me a resounding applause to you? Thank you very much. Let me recognize the presence of Her Excellency Benedict Olugboyega Alabi, Deputy Governor, standing in for Governor Boyega Oyetola, Governor of Osun State. Please let's welcome him with a round of applause. Thank you for coming, sir. And very quickly, to bring up the closing ceremony to a close, the opening ceremony to a close, I'd like to invite Mr. Dayo Akpata, Solicitor General of the Federation and Permanent Secretary, Minister of Justice, standing in for Abakar Malami, SAN, to please come up with the vote of thanks. I'd like us to please welcome him with a resounding applause as well, please.
Thank you. Your Excellency, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Yakubu Dogara, the Deputy President of the Senate, Distinguished Senator Ike Ekeremadu, His Lordship, Honorable Justice Ibrahim Tanko Mohammed, the Acting CGN, represented by my Lord, Honorable Justice Bozimo, Chairman NJCI, the governors here present, the President of Nigerian Bar Association, the judges, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On the 22nd day of March 2019, the President of Nigeria, of this country, General Muhammad Buhari, inaugurated this committee, and we were given 3 months. Today, we are here to make a presentation. We want to first of all thank God and thank the President of Nigeria for the initiative to come up with this intervention, which is essentially for fiscal federalism of Nigeria, how it relates to the financial autonomy of the state legislature and the judiciary. And we also want to thank everyone that has come to this place from different parts of Nigeria to look at it. It only underscores the interest and the passion in ensuring that Nigeria is a better place as it relates to the fiscal autonomy of the state legislature and the judiciary. We want to thank Mr. Clement Nwankwo, who has been very passionate about this project. It's a Nigeria project which all of us are subscribed to, and for your coming today, it only underscores that passion that the state and judicial autonomy is an issue which we must, all of us, address and find dialectic remedies to ensure that Nigeria is a better place. We want to appreciate all of you. We want to appreciate particularly the legislators who we know that they have also been passionate about bringing the amendments which we will require. I think today is a kind of what we actually need in Nigeria in cross-fertilization of ideas, in which a meeting of the legislative, judiciary, and executive to ensure that on a round table, Nigeria can be a better place. Thank you very much, and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you, and thank you very much indeed. We'll have a group photograph immediately after the national anthem, and after that, we will then move for the tea break. Tea break, I'm told, is just for 15 minutes, and then we'll reconvene for the technical session to kickstart. May I, therefore, at this juncture, please invite all of us to rise for the national anthem. this area.
Topics have been outlined to ensure justice is done to this laudable initiative at the technical section, and for instance, the assessment of the financial autonomy of the state legislature and the state judiciary under the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, looking at the pros and cons, the role of the executive arm in strengthening the financial autonomy of the state legislature and judiciary in Nigeria is also part of the topics to x-ray in this retreat. On behalf of the entire outside broadcast crew, Kenneth Nanami saying thank you for watching.
Members of the